My son said, "It's just family." The words rolled off his tongue like they meant nothing, like kindness had an expiration date and I'd just missed mine. He said it standing right in the doorway of the house I bought, the one with my name on every mortgage slip and tax receipt since 1989. The sun was setting behind him, gold spilling through the blinds, painting half his face in light and the other in shadow. It looked like God himself was trying to show me both sides of my boy. The child I raised and the man I didn't recognize. He leaned on the doorframe, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a beer I'd paid for when I stocked the fridge that morning. "Ma," he said, smirking, "you don't gotta worry about every little thing. It's just family." The word family hit like a slap wrapped in silk, because family is what I bled for. Family is what I stayed up praying for when rent was due and the lights were cut off. Family is what I thought would hold me when my knees got weak. But this kind of family, the one he'd built with that woman, it had teeth, and it bit. The kitchen still smelled of fried okra and guilt. His wife, Tasha, sat at the table, tapping them long, fake nails against the wood, like she was keeping time in some private song. She didn't look up, didn't have to. She just smiled that sideways smile, the kind that says, "You old now, your season done." "Well," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm, "if it's just family, then why's my name not on the invite list?" Silence. Even the refrigerator hum dimmed down like it was listening. Tasha glanced at him, that quick little eye flick that wives do when they want to control a man without words. He cleared his throat. "It ain't that serious, Ma. We just trying to keep things simple." "Simple?" I laughed. That old, deep kind of laugh that don't come from humor. It comes from the bones. Simple is when you forget to bring your mama flowers. Simple is when you forget to call on Mother's Day. But uninviting me to my own housewarming, that's not simple, baby. That's strategy. He looked away, and that's when I knew. I'd lost him somewhere between her perfume and his pride. The walls of that house remembered things. They remembered when he was 12, running through these same halls with skinned knees and a gap-toothed grin. They remembered the Christmas he cried because the toy store ran out of Power Rangers, and I drove all the way to another county to find one. They remembered the night his daddy left and I told him, "We gon' make it, just us two." And now, here he was, grown man, standing taller than me, but smaller than the truth. He rubbed the back of his neck, that nervous habit he got from me. "Ma, don't do this right now." "Do what?" I said. "Speak truth? You mean that?" He sighed. Tasha rolled her eyes, picked up her purse, and said, "I'll be in." The car. Her heels clicked down the hallway like gunshots. When the front door closed, the house finally exhaled. I looked at him and saw not a man, but a boy still trying to hide behind another woman's shadow. "Baby," I said softly, "you forgot who signed the papers for this house, who made that down payment, who fixed that roof when the storm came." He didn't answer, didn't have to. His silence was confession enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. The clock ticked loud like it was chewing through time. The wind outside pressed against the windows, whispering all the things I'd tried to bury. Every betrayal, every slight, every time I swallowed my pride to keep peace. At 2:13 a.m., I got up and made tea, chamomile and honey, the same kind my mama used to make when she couldn't cry out loud. And as the steam rose, I realized something. If they thought my kindness was weakness, they were about to meet the woman who built kindness from survival. Because I didn't just buy that house, I built their foundation, brick by brick, bill by bill. And if they wanted to pretend I didn't exist, then I'd remind them, in my own way, exactly who held the deed to their comfort. The next morning, I dressed slow. Navy dress, gold brooch, shoes polished till they shined like truth. I looked at myself in the mirror, touched the lines around my eyes, and whispered, "They forgot who raised 'em, but they gon' remember." Then I picked up that thick brown envelope from the kitchen counter, the one from the courthouse stamped and sealed, and slipped it into my purse. By noon, I was at the dining table they thought was theirs. When the front door opened, I didn't even turn around. "Oh," Tasha said, her voice high. "You here again?" "Mm-hmm," I said. "I pay the taxes, baby. I go where I please." Her face froze, that smile cracking just a little. Behind her, my son looked between us, caught between guilt and confusion. I tapped the envelope with my finger. "Since it's just family, I brought some family papers. Y'all might want to sit for this." The silence that followed was thick enough to pour, because sometimes revenge don't need shouting. Sometimes it just walks in, wearing pearls and patience. The morning after, I sat on the porch swing with my coffee, listening to the mockingbirds gossip like old church ladies. The air smelled of rain-soaked soil and jasmine, that scent that used to calm me when I still believed peace could live in this house. I remember when I bought it. Interest rate was high, my paycheck was low, and every man at that bank desk looked at me like I was asking for a miracle instead of a mortgage. But I got it anyway, because I was tired of renting space in a world that never wanted me to own anything, not even my own rest. I worked 32 years at that nursing home, folding other people's sheets, holding other people's hands, while their children were too busy to visit. Every check, I put a piece of it aside. Little envelopes marked light bill, college fund, someday. And someday finally came when I walked into that closing office with calloused hands and a $30,000 down payment. They called me ma'am that day, not girl, not sweetheart, just ma'am. I remember signing my name in blue ink, Helen Marie Parker, and thinking, this ink is my blood, and these walls gonna carry my name longer than any man ever did. When my son, Marcus, was born, I promised him he'd never know struggle the way I did. He was light-skinned like his daddy, loud like me, and curious enough to get into trouble before breakfast. Every time he smiled, I saw all my sacrifices folded inside that boy's grin. I paid for his braces, his basketball camps, his college tuition at Southern. When his car broke down in Baton Rouge, I sent him $200 from my emergency fund. When he proposed to Tasha, I helped with the down payment on the ring, even though something in my spirit twitched the first time she hugged me. Her arms felt like velvet over ice. Tasha came from a different world. Her nails stayed long, her hair always pressed, her words dipped in honey and poison. She could charm a snake and still make it apologize. Marcus said she made him feel seen. I told him sometimes folks only see you 'cause they studying where to cut. I bit my tongue for peace. I smiled when she called me Miss Helen instead of Ma. I cooked Sunday dinners when she said she was too tired to cook. I even gave them the guest house out back, rent-free, so they could save up. But saving turned to spending, and gratitude turned to entitlement. By the third year, Tasha had more say in this house than I did. She changed curtains, moved my mama's photo off the hallway wall, even told me not to micromanage the thermostat. I knew what was happening. She was trying to make me invisible. The final crack came last Thanksgiving. I'd roasted 2 turkeys, baked 4 pies, and set the table with my best china. The set Marcus bought me on his first real paycheck. Dinner started fine. Then, in front of his cousins, Tasha laughed and said, "Marcus, you should tell your mama we might refinance her house soon, get that equity working for us." Her house. She said it like she owned the vowels. The whole table went silent. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to correct her. He just said, "It's just family, Ma." That was the moment the love turned cold. The fork froze halfway to my mouth, and every gospel song I'd ever leaned on fell quiet in my chest, because just family was how people excuse disrespect they never planned to stop giving. After that, I started paying attention. Little things. Mail that stopped coming to my address. Phone calls he took in whispers. A new family account I hadn't heard of. One afternoon, I went to the county clerk's office, just to ease my mind. The young man at the desk typed for a while, then frowned. "Ma'am," he said, "you still the owner, but there's an application here. Name change request. Pending review. I felt my knees weaken. Name change? He nodded. To Marcus and Natasha Parker. I smiled. Right there in that courthouse lobby, I smiled. That quiet, knowing kind of smile that comes before thunder. Because I wasn't going to shout. Not yet. Not till the lesson could echo. That night, I made sweet tea and pulled out every receipt, every payment stub, every tax document I'd kept since day one. Stacked them neat on the table like soldiers ready for battle. At the top, I placed the deed, the real one, not a copy, the original, with my signature bold as sunrise. Then I called my friend Mavis from church, the one who worked part-time at the county office. She said, "Helen, you want me to send you a copy of that pending file?" "Yes, baby," I said. "Send every page, every line, every lie." When that file came through, it was all there. Tasha's signature forged on my behalf, Marcus's initials under spousal co-owner, and a fake notary seal. Sloppy work. But arrogance always leaves fingerprints. I didn't cry, didn't cuss, didn't even pray for peace that night. Instead, I whispered, "Lord, let me walk through this storm calm enough to make thunder nervous, because betrayal is fuel if you know how to burn it slow." By the next morning, I had my plan. No arguments, no begging, just revelation. Quiet, holy, undeniable. When I sat at that table again with that brown envelope, it wasn't anger I brought. It was proof. And before that day was over, my son would remember who built his foundation and who could shake it. The next Sunday came dressed like peace, but I could smell the storm behind it. The sky was low and gray, the kind that presses down on your shoulders, whispering, "Something's about to break." The church bells rang at 10, and I walked out my front door like it was a battlefield I already owned. My Bible was in my hand, but so was that brown envelope. Faith in one palm, evidence in the other. Balance. When I got to service, folks greeted me like they always did. "Morning, Miss Helen." "Looking sharp today." I smiled, hugged a few, but my eyes stayed locked on the front pew, where Marcus and Tasha sat, pretending holiness could hide sin. They looked perfect together. He wore a gray suit too new to be bought on his salary. She wore a white dress that didn't belong in any house of repentance. During the sermon, the pastor talked about honoring your mother and father that your days may be long. Marcus didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. That's when I knew. The devil had him comfortable. After church, Tasha came over with her usual half-hug and perfume cloud. "Miss Helen, you coming by the house later? We grilling." "The house?" I said slow. "My house, baby. You mean my house." Her smile flickered like a bad porch light. Marcus shifted behind her. "Ma, let's not do this here." "Oh, I'm not doing anything," I said, patting my purse. "Not yet." I waited till evening. Waited till their friends came over. The same ones who called me Miss Helen with fake sweetness when they needed something baked, and that lady when they thought I couldn't hear. Cars lined the driveway I paid for. Music played too loud for a Sunday. Laughter spilled from my porch. When I walked up the steps, conversation froze mid-air. Even the dogs stopped barking. Tasha blinked, red cup in hand. "Oh, Miss Helen, you made it." "I sure did," I said. I walked right past her into the living room, heels steady on my own hardwood. The crowd parted like Moses had just shown up with paperwork. Marcus tried to laugh. "Ma, you could have called first." "I didn't need to call," I said. "This address still mine." I set the envelope on the coffee table, right beside their photo, smiling faces in front of my house, the kind of photo that lies for a living. "Y'all having a good time?" I asked, voice sugar-sweet but slicing clean. "Hope so, 'cause after tonight you might want to start packing." Tasha's jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" I opened the envelope slow and steady, pulled out the deed, the forged application, and the notarized complaint, already stamped filed. Her face went pale like she'd seen her own reflection too clear for comfort. "See this?" I said, tapping the paper. "This here's a felony, forgery, fraud, theft by deception, 3 words y'all should have Googled before signing my name. Marcus stepped forward, panic flashing through his voice. Ma, it's not what you think. Oh, it's exactly what I think, I cut in. And more than that, it's what the district attorney thinks too. He froze. Tasha's drink slipped from her hand, spilling red across my carpet like a confession. I leaned down, picked up the empty cup, and smiled. Be careful, baby. That stain won't come out easy. Kinda like guilt. The room was quiet enough to hear shame breathing. Marcus finally spoke, voice cracking like a child's. Ma, please don't do this in front of everyone. Oh, you mean like how y'all did it to me? Behind everyone's back? He didn't answer. Couldn't. I turned to the guests, half of them pretending to look at their phones. Dinner's over, y'all. The truth just got served. One by one, they left. When the last car rolled out, only the 3 of us remained, me, him, and the woman who mistook my kindness for weakness. Tasha was the first to speak. You wouldn't really call the cops on your own son, would you? Baby, I said, looking her dead in the eye, you don't get to use my son as a shield after trying to rob me blind. And I ain't calling the cops. I'm inviting them. Marcus broke down then, hands shaking, tears in his voice. Ma, I just wanted to give her a better life. And you tried to steal mine to do it. I stepped closer, touched his cheek. My love raised you, baby, but it won't save you from yourself. He turned away, shoulders trembling. Tasha whispered, You can't prove it was me. I chuckled low. That's the best part, sugar. You proved it yourself. Digital signatures don't lie, and neither do screenshots. By the next morning, the papers were filed, the locks were changed, and a new sign hung on the fence. Private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Marcus came by once more that week. He stood outside the gate, eyes swollen, guilt heavy. I didn't open it. I just looked through the iron bars and said, You told me it was just family, remember? Well, I'm just protecting mine. Me. He didn't argue, didn't beg. He just nodded like a man learning what loss really feels like. And when he walked away, I whispered, Sometimes love needs distance to echo. But this story ain't over yet, because guilt don't end a story. It just starts the lesson. And mine was still unfolding. The following week, the air in that house felt different. Still, holy. Like peace had finally returned and was walking barefoot across my floors. I moved slower, breathed deeper, even let the radio play the old gospel songs I hadn't listened to since Marcus stopped coming around. But every melody carried memory. Every lyric echoed questions. Was I right? Did I go too far? Could I forgive him and still protect myself? The truth is, motherhood never ends. It just changes uniforms. One day you're holding bottles, the next you're holding boundaries. That Thursday, a letter came from the county clerk's office, stamped official, sealed tight. I opened it with hands steady but heart trembling. Case review complete. Ownership reaffirmed, Helen Marie Parker. Underneath, a line in fine print, forgery investigation transferred to district attorney's office. I exhaled long, like I'd been holding my breath for years. Then I whispered, Thank you, Lord, and set that paper right beside my coffee mug like it was communion. That was the first reveal, the one I hadn't expected to hit so deep, not because I won, but because I realized how close I'd come to losing everything I built. 2 days later, there was a knock on the door. Not the polite kind, the heavy, hesitant kind that carries guilt on its knuckles. When I opened it, Marcus stood there, no smile, no swagger, just my boy again. His eyes looked like they'd been crying longer than his pride wanted to admit. Hey, Ma, he said softly, you gonna let me in? I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. That depends. You coming in as a man or as somebody else's shadow? He swallowed hard. As your son. I stepped aside. Then take your shoes off. You gon' walk honest in my house. He came in slow, eyes drifting to every photo on the wall. family reunions, graduations, his first Little League trophy. Every one of them looked back at him like silent witnesses. We sat at the kitchen table, same one he used to do homework on. The kettle hissed on the stove, and I poured us tea, chamomile and honey, same as always, the kind that forgives quietly. He took a sip, hands shaking. "Ma, I messed up." I didn't say a word, just waited. Because sometimes silence tells the truth better than shouting. He took a breath. "Tasha," she said, if the house was in both our names, we could refinance, pay off our debt, maybe open a business. I told her it wasn't right. But she said, "Your mama won't live forever." He winced at his own words. "Ma, I swear, I didn't sign it at first. But she said I was choosing you over my family. She made me feel like I was still a little boy who couldn't provide. And I fell for it." I nodded slow, the kind of nod that comes from understanding more than agreeing. "She played you, baby, but you let her deal the cards." Tears welled up in his eyes. "I thought I was helping. I thought I could fix it before you found out." "Fix it?" I said, voice low but sharp. "You tried to fix a lie with another lie. That ain't repair, that's rot." He covered his face, shoulders trembling. "Ma, I don't even know who I am anymore." "Yes, you do," I said, touching his hand. "You just forgot whose blood runs in your veins. You forgot you were raised by a woman who never stole a thing that wasn't hers, even when the world stole from her daily." He looked up, tears streaking his cheeks. "Can you ever forgive me?" I took a long breath, looked toward the window where sunlight cut through the blinds like hope breaking in. "Forgiveness is easy, baby. Trust, that's the one that takes time." He nodded, silent. The clock ticked between us like it was counting each inch of space that needed healing. After a while, I asked the question that had been sitting heavy on my chest. "Where's Tasha now?" He hesitated. "She's staying with her sister. Said she needs space." "Space?" I smirked. Funny how thieves always need space when the light comes on. He almost smiled, then sighed. "She said I should have chosen her over you." "And what did you tell her?" He looked me dead in the eye. "I told her I finally did, because choosing you this time meant choosing right." That's when I saw it. That flicker of the boy I raised, buried under years of noise and pride. That was my real victory. Not the deed, not the case, but the return of a soul I thought I'd lost. When he left that day, he hugged me like he meant it. Long, heavy, wordless. The kind of hug that says, "I'm sorry," without saying it out loud. After he drove off, I stood in the doorway for a long while, watching the dust rise from the gravel road, like the past finally settling. But I knew the story wasn't done, because the woman who'd tried to steal my home wasn't finished with hers, and some storms don't end until you face them twice. That night, I heard a sound outside, tires crunching gravel, footsteps near the gate. Through the blinds, I saw her, Tasha. She was standing by the fence, arms crossed, wearing that same smug look she wore the day she told me I wasn't invited. Only now, her confidence looked borrowed. I turned off the light, watching her silhouette under the porch lamp. She didn't knock. She just stood there, staring at the house she almost stole. And I thought, God, give me patience, or give me front row seats to justice, because something told me this wasn't over yet. That night, the wind was restless. It kept brushing against the house like it was trying to remind me that peace was only borrowed, never bought. I sat by the window with the lamp low, the gospel station humming softly, and watched Tasha pacing outside my gate. Her arms folded, then dropped, folded again. She looked like a woman who'd lost the script to her own performance. Part of me wanted to go out there and to ask her why. Why the lies, the forgery, the betrayal? But another part of me, the wiser, quieter part, knew that some questions ain't for answers. They're for endings. She finally spoke, voice trembling but loud enough to cut through the screen door. You took everything from me. I didn't move, didn't even blink, just sipped my tea slow. No, baby, I said through the window. I just took back what was mine. Her face twisted. You ruined my life. You did that when you touched what God told you not to. She froze, and for the first time I saw it. Fear. Not of me, but of herself. Of what she'd become chasing something she couldn't hold. The next morning, she was gone. Just tire tracks in the gravel and an empty coffee cup she must have thrown at the fence before leaving. But peace didn't come right away, because when betrayal ends, silence begins. And silence is louder than any argument. Days passed slow. Marcus didn't call. Neighbors whispered like they were afraid of saying my name too loud, as if the truth might echo back. I started gardening again, pulling weeds, planting greens, letting dirt fill my hands the way prayer fills a church. It grounded me. It reminded me that life keeps growing even after storms. Still, every sunset I'd glance at that gate, half expecting her to come back, half afraid she might. One evening, Mavis from church dropped by with banana pudding and gossip. She never said the word forgery, but it hung in the air like perfume. You holding up okay, Helen? I smiled thin. I've been through worse, baby. This just another valley with better scenery. She laughed, but her eyes softened. You know folks talking. They say she trying to press charges against you. Against me? I said, chuckling. For what? Owning what I own? Mavis shrugged. You know how snakes move when the grass too short. I nodded, because she was right. Some people don't repent, they just regroup. That night, I dreamed of my mama. She was standing in her old apron stirring something on the stove. She didn't speak, just turned, looked me dead in the eye, and mouthed one word, wait. When I woke up, the air was heavy, not scary, just charged, like the world was holding its breath. By noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Parker? Yes, this is she. This is Deputy Lang from the Sheriff's Office. We received a complaint filed in your name. I felt my pulse skip. What kind of complaint? She's accusing you of harassment, trespass, and emotional distress. I laughed out loud. She broke into my life and now she got the nerve to say she's the victim? The deputy hesitated. Don't worry, ma'am. We already got your paperwork. The DA's office sent everything over this morning. You're clear. I closed my eyes. Relief washed over me slow, like sunlight through stained glass. Thank you, officer, I said. And tell that woman. No, never mind. She'll hear what she needs to from the Lord. That evening, Marcus came by again. He looked smaller somehow, like the weight of shame had finally settled on his shoulders. She's saying you ruined her life, he said quietly. I didn't ruin it, baby. I just stopped financing it. He sighed. She says she's going to leave town. I nodded. Good. Let her take her demons with her. Maybe they'll find another porch to sit on. He stared down at his shoes. I'm sorry, Ma. I really am. I reached out, lifted his chin. You ain't the first child to lose his way. Just promise me you'll find it before it's too late. That night, after he left, I sat on the porch swing again. The stars were out, quiet, patient witnesses to everything a woman endures and survives. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of lilac from the neighbor's yard, and in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in months. Stillness. Not peace yet, but stillness. The kind that comes right before dawn decides to forgive the night. I whispered, Lord, if this storm ain't over yet, at least let me dance in the rain. And somewhere deep inside, I knew. The lesson wasn't done. Tasha wasn't finished. And justice, real justice, was about to come walking up my driveway. The next morning, I woke to the sound of tires on gravel again. Slow, deliberate. Not like a visitor, like somebody circling, measuring distance. I peeked through the curtain. It was a silver car, Tasha's. I could see her sitting inside, phone in hand, talking fast. Her other hand, shaking, held a cigarette, even though she never smoked before all this mess. The woman was unraveling. You could see it in the way her movements didn't match her face anymore. Too many lies will do that. They start living in your bones. I made coffee, steady hands, no fear, because when you've walked through worse storms, thunder just sounds like applause. Then came the knock, 3 times, sharp. I opened the door slow, made sure my voice stayed sweet but steel underneath. Well, look who the wind dragged back. She stepped inside without asking. Her heels clicked like guilt walking in rhythm. "Don't act all high and holy," she said, eyes darting around. "You think you won? You didn't win anything. I got my house, my name, my peace. That sounds like winning to me." She threw her purse on the counter. "Marcus left me. You happy?" I blinked once. "Baby, I didn't take your man. You lost him the day you started treating me like an enemy instead of family." She stood there, breathing hard, trembling. Then her voice cracked open. "You think you're so perfect. You think you can buy people with your money, with your pity. Well, you can't buy me." I smiled just a little. "I already did. The day I paid your rent. The day I put food in your fridge. You've been on my payroll of kindness for years." That shut her up. For a second, she looked like a child caught lying about something small. Only her sin had a mortgage attached. She picked up a photo frame off the mantel, one of Marcus as a boy. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "He said you'd always forgive him. He said you'd never turn him away." I nodded. He was right. Forgiveness is free, but access costs something. She slammed the frame down. Glass cracked. I didn't flinch, because that's when I saw it. The folder in her hand, a manila folder, thick, worn, with papers poking out the edges. "What's that?" I asked. Her smile was thin. "Insurance." She slid one page out, held it up like a weapon. It was a photocopy of a check. My check, with my signature. Except under it, scrawled in blue ink, were the words, "Loan repayment." "See this?" she said. "Looks like you gave me money as a loan, and now it looks like you trying to ruin me for not paying it back. You know what that means in court, don't you?" I didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing fear. Instead, I said, "You know what perjury means, baby. You sign that lie, you better spell your name real clear. The jail clerk gon' need it." She hesitated. For the first time, she looked unsure. "Maybe the judge won't believe you," she muttered. "Maybe he won't," I said, leaning closer. "But the notary on that check will, because I raised her." Her mouth opened, but no. Words came out. See, what she didn't know, what nobody knew, was that the notary at the county office was my goddaughter, Sierra. And Sierra never signed that check. She'd already filed her own affidavit about the forgery. I watched realization wash over Tasha like cold rain. She knew she was cornered. She backed up a step, then another. Her voice softened, desperate. "I just wanted a life, something better than the one I had. Marcus, he made it sound like you'd never share, like everything had to go your way." My tone stayed even. "You wanted better, but you tried to build it with theft. And baby, anything built on a lie collapses under truth." She started crying then. Real tears this time, not the staged kind. Mascara streaked down her cheeks like the truth finally melting the mask. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I grew up with nothing. My mama left. My daddy drank. All I ever wanted was a home. And you tried to steal mine," I said gently. "That's not wanting. That's wounding." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the clock ticking, like the universe waiting for someone to choose redemption over pride. Finally, I said, "You still got a chance, Tasha. Turn yourself in. Tell the DA the truth before it finds you." She shook her head. I can't go to jail." I sighed. "Then you best learn to live running from what you did. 'Cause lies got long legs, baby, but they trip easy." She stared at me, eyes hollow, breathing uneven. Then she grabbed her purse, turned, and stormed out the door. The car engine roared, tires spun gravel, and just like that, she was gone again. That night, I sat alone on the porch. The air was heavy with humidity and judgment. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, sharp, lonely, tired. I rocked slow on the swing, the wood creaking like an old hymn, and I whispered, "Lord, I ain't perfect, but if justice is comin', let it be clean." At midnight, my phone rang again, Mavis's voice shaky. "Helen, you awake?" "Yeah, baby, what's wrong?" "It's Tasha. They found her car by the river bridge. Door open, purse inside." I felt the breath leave my chest. "Lord." "They don't know if she jumped or if she ran," Mavis said. "Police still lookin'." I closed my eyes, heart heavy, whispering, "She wanted a home. And maybe she finally ran out of places to hide." The house went quiet again, but this time, peace didn't follow. Just a hollow kind of ache that even justice couldn't fill. Because sometimes, revenge don't end with victory. It ends with silence. And that silence is heavier than any house deed you could ever hold. The next morning came quiet. Too quiet. No birds, no cars. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the creak of the old house breathing beside me. I sat at the table, hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold hours. Ego, eyes fixed on the same spot of sunlight crawling across the floor. That light had moved, but I hadn't. Mavis's words from the night before still echoed. They found her car by the bridge. I'd spent my whole life believing justice had a sound, a gavel, a door closing, a prayer answered. But this? This was just silence wearing guilt's perfume. By 9 o'clock, there was another knock. Slower this time, more official. When I opened the door, 2 officers stood there. One young, one old, both with faces too tired for the hour. "Mrs. Parker?" "Yes," I said, voice steady though my heart wasn't. The older one nodded, hat in hand. "There's been a development regarding your case." My fingers tightened around the edge of the door. "Did they find her?" He glanced at his partner, then back to me. "Yes, ma'am, downriver. She's alive." Alive. That one word sank into me like a nail through wood. Painful, sure, but somehow necessary. "She's in county custody," he continued. "Apparently, after she drove to the bridge, she called the DA's office herself, said she wanted to come clean." I felt my breath catch. "She confessed?" He nodded. "Said she forged the papers, tried to frame you, even fabricated a loan document, claimed she was manipulated but took full responsibility." I leaned against the doorframe. The strength leaving my legs like forgiveness finally found a home to rest. "Will she be okay?" I asked softly. "She's shaken up," he said, "but she'll live. And she asked us to give you this." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small white envelope. No name, no stamp. Just you written in blue ink. I took it with both hands. "Thank you, officers." After they left, I sat in my favorite chair and stared at the envelope for a long while. The paper was still warm, like her hands had just left it. Finally, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper, torn at the edge. The handwriting was shaky, rushed, raw. "Miss Helen, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know why. I grew up in a house where love was currency, and I was always broke. Every man I ever met wanted something. Beauty, silence, obedience. Marcus was different. He wanted peace, and I wanted to give it to him. But when I saw how much you'd done for him, how much you meant to him, I realized I could never be you. So I tried to replace you. I see now that's not how family works. You don't steal love. You learn it. I told the DA everything. They say I'll get time, but I'll use it. Maybe I'll finally learn what home feels like. Please tell Marcus I'm sorry, and tell God I'm trying. Tasha." I folded the letter slow, careful not to tear it. Then I sat there for a long time, just breathing. Some stories end with punishment. Others end with peace trying to be born inside the ruins. This one, it was both. That afternoon, Marcus came over. He'd already heard. His eyes were red, face drawn. "She turned herself in." he said quietly. I nodded. I know. He rubbed his forehead. She called me from county. Said you'd understand. I do, I said. I just wish she'd learned before she fell. He sat down beside me, tears welling again. Ma, I don't even know what to feel. Feel it all, I said. The guilt, the sorrow, the mercy. Feel it, 'cause that's how you grow. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Then he whispered, She said she's sorry. I know, I said, sliding the letter toward him. She told me too. He read it in silence. When he finished, he set it down slow, then took my hand. We sat there together, no words, no blame, just two souls learning to breathe again after the storm. That evening, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks. Light spilled across the porch, warm and golden, like heaven decided to visit. I stepped outside barefoot, letting the boards creak under me, letting the wind lift the weight off my shoulders. I thought about Tasha, about all the women who spend their lives clawing for a home instead of healing into one, and I whispered, Lord, don't let this pain be wasted. Because in that moment, I understood something I'd never said out loud. Revenge can end a story, but forgiveness can rewrite it. That night, Marcus stayed for dinner. We didn't talk about money or property or the past. We just ate fried catfish and cornbread, laughing at old stories, letting the sound of love return to the house, brick by brick. And when he left, he kissed my forehead like he used to when he was little. Love you, Ma. I know, baby, I said. Just don't forget again. When I closed the door behind him, I turned off the lights, looked around the quiet house and smiled. The same walls that once held betrayal now held healing. And somewhere deep down, I heard my mama's voice again, whispering the word she'd given me in that dream. Wait. She'd been right. Justice came. But Grace took her time. The next Sunday, the church was packed tighter than a revival tent. Word travels fast in small towns, faster when it rides on guilt, mercy, and gossip in equal measure. Folks came to see if the storm around Miss Helen Parker had really passed, or if lightning still planned to strike. I walked in wearing cream, calm, and pearls. Not white for innocence, not black for mourning. Cream because peace don't shout, it glows. Every whisper quieted when I stepped through those doors. Heads turned. Some nodded out of respect, some out of shame, a few out of curiosity, the kind people feel when they see strength they don't understand. I sat in my usual spot, third pew from the front, left side. Same seat I'd occupied through 30 years of sermons, births, and funerals. When the choir began to sing, His Eye is on the Unsee, Sparrow, I felt my own eyes water, because through every betrayal, every courtroom, every tear, His eye had been on me too. After service, Pastor Reynolds came over. Miss Helen, he said, voice warm but cautious. You've been through a trial fit for Job. I smiled. The difference, Pastor, is Job got double at the end. I just got wiser. He chuckled. You sure you okay? I nodded. I ain't angry no more. Anger's just grief with nowhere to sit. I'd unbuilt it a chair and told it to rest. He laughed. That deep preacher laugh that sounds like a hymn waking up. Well, I'll be. You gonna have folks quoting you more than scripture, Sister Helen. That afternoon, I went home to find a letter from the DA's office. It confirmed what the officers had already told me. Case closed, property secured, charges finalized. But at the bottom was a note from the DA himself. Thank you for your grace during this process. People like you remind us that justice can be steady without being cruel. I stared at those words for a long time. Steady without being cruel. That's what I wanted my legacy to sound like, because vengeance might make you famous for a night, but dignity makes you unforgettable. The next day, a reporter from the county ledger came knocking. Miss Parker, she said, we're doing a feature on resilience and women of faith. You're kind of a legend right now. I laughed. Baby, legends are just folks who survived long enough for gossip to turn holy. She smiled. Could we quote that? "You can have it," I said. "Just spell my name right, on the deed and in the paper." That interview went viral locally. Small town viral, but still viral. Headline read, "Elderly woman outsmarts forgery scheme, teaches town a lesson in grace." The comments poured in online. This story broke me and healed me at the same time. Miss Helen is a whole sermon. Reminds me of my mama. Never underestimate quiet women. By that weekend, my porch was covered in letters from strangers, women mostly, writing things like, "You made me call my mother after 3 years of silence. I forgave my sister today because of you." That's when I realized the revenge wasn't the court papers. The revenge was influence. They tried to make me small. I became a story. They tried to erase me. I became a movement. One evening, Marcus stopped by again. He'd been helping with community outreach, starting over one act of service at a time. He looked lighter, cleaner, like guilt had finally turned to growth. "I saw the article," he said. "You a celebrity now." I smirked. "I'm a cautionary tale, baby, but if fame keeps one fool from signing something dumb, I'll take it." He laughed, then got quiet. "Ma, Tasha sent another letter from the detention center." I took it, nodding. "That's good. She still got words." "That means she still got fight." He hesitated. "She said she's been reading scripture again. Says she prays for you every night." That made me pause. For the first time since this all began, my chest didn't tighten at her name. I just felt tired and grateful at once. "Then maybe this whole mess wasn't a curse," I said. "Maybe it was the Lord's way of saving 3 souls instead of 1. He blinked. 3? Her, you, and me? Later that night, I went out on the porch again. The moon was high, full, soft like forgiveness hanging in the sky. I lit a candle, not for mourning, but for memory. Then I prayed out loud, voice steady. "Lord, thank you for the house you let me build, for the son you let me keep, for the woman you let me teach, and for the peace you let me earn." The candle flame flickered once, then steadied, same as my heart. When I walked back inside, the house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt settled, like it had finally exhaled the last of its ghosts. And as I passed the hallway mirror, I caught my reflection and smiled. "Kindness ain't weakness," I whispered. "It's just quiet until it strikes." That was my victory. Not the deed, not the papers, not the justice system, just that one truth, engraved in my bones, glowing in the mirror like an inheritance no one could forge. The seasons turned like forgiveness taking its time. By the time autumn came, the leaves along County Road 7 were all gold and rust, and the air smelled of rain-soaked wood and clean slates. The house didn't echo anymore when I walked through it. It sang, low and content, like it was grateful to still be mine. The headlines had faded. The whispers in town had quieted. And the only sound that lingered was the gentle rhythm of life, finding its way back to normal. Every Friday, Marcus came by for supper. He'd help fix the screen door or repaint the porch rail or just sit at the table drinking sweet tea while I cooked. Sometimes we'd talk about Tasha. Sometimes we didn't. He told me she'd joined a rehabilitation program at the correctional center, teaching women how to budget, how to write resumes. Said the guards called her Miss T now, that she carried herself different, like a woman who'd met her own reflection and finally said enough. I nodded, slow and sure. "That's the thing about guilt," I said. "If it don't destroy you, it rebuilds you stronger." He smiled, small and proud. "I think she's learning, Ma." "Good," I said, "'cause the lesson cost us enough." At church, people still came up to me like I was a walking proverb. "Miss Helen," one woman said, "you gave me courage to stand up to my own son. I told him no for the first time in years." I hugged her, laughed soft. "Saying no ain't unloving, baby. Sometimes it's the holiest word you can use." The congregation had started calling me Mother Helen. I didn't ask for it, but I carried it with grace, because titles don't mean much, but responsibility does. And if my scars could be somebody else's map, I'd show every one of them. One evening, I got a letter. Cream envelope, official seal. It was from the Department of Community Services. They wanted to feature my story in a program for young mothers, teaching them about ownership, trust, and self-worth. At the bottom, in neat handwriting, was a signature I hadn't seen in a while. Tasha Parker. My hands trembled, but not from fear. Just awe. The same woman who'd once forged my name was now signing her own, honestly. I smiled and whispered, "Look at God." A few weeks later, I visited the women's facility. Marcus came with me, said he wanted to see her too. We walked through the gates, past the guards, into a small meeting room that smelled faintly of soap and hope. When Tasha came in, her hair was shorter, her eyes clearer. She looked real, like the version of herself she'd been chasing finally caught up. "Miss Helen," she said softly, pulling her chair close. "Thank you for coming." "I told you before, baby," I said. "I ain't your enemy. Never was." Tears welled up in her eyes. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I hurt the one person who tried to help me. I nodded. "You did. But apology is the first brick in rebuilding." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a copy of a certificate. It read, Parole Education Program, Leadership Mentor Natasha Parker. She handed it to me. I earned this, for real this time. I touched the paper, nodded slow. "Good. Maybe now you'll understand what I meant when I said family ain't ownership, it's stewardship." She smiled, tears falling. "I do now. You taught me that." Marcus was quiet, eyes glassy. When he finally spoke, his voice broke. "I forgive you, Tasha." That moment, that fragile, trembling silence after his words, was worth every wound we'd all walked through, because that's when the cycle broke. When we left, I felt the wind hit my face like a blessing. The world outside the gates looked newer somehow. Same sun, different light. "Ma," Marcus said as we walked to the car, "you think people really change?" I smiled. "People don't change, baby. They remember who they were before fear taught them to forget." He nodded slow. We drove home with the windows down, the radio humming Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come." And for once, that song didn't sound like a promise. It sounded like a fact. That night, I sat on the porch again, my sanctuary, my pulpit, my confessional. The stars blinked steady, the cicadas hummed like a choir, and the world was finally quiet enough for gratitude to speak. I whispered into the night, justice done, mercy given, balance restored. Then I closed my eyes and smiled, because for the first time in a long while, everything and everyone was exactly where they were meant to be. The first light of spring rolled over the horizon, soft and golden, touching every corner of my house like grace, running its fingers through time. I sat on my porch swing, wrapped in a quilt Mama stitched half a century ago, watching the dew turn the grass into diamonds. This was peace, not the loud kind that announces itself, but the quiet kind that just sits beside you and breathes. The world had kept turning, same as always, but I was different now. I didn't carry anger in my shoulders anymore, didn't wake up replaying the wrongs in my head, didn't measure my worth by how many people I had to forgive. Now I measured it by how softly I could still love after everything. Marcus's car pulled into the driveway, kicking up a small halo of dust behind it. He got out with groceries in one hand and tulips in the other, pink ones, my favorite. He walked slower these days, humbler. Not because he was broken, but because he'd learned what fragile really meant. "Mornin', Ma," he said, grinning. "You cook already or you lettin' me?" I laughed, slow and deep. "Boy, I let you once and you almost burned my cast iron." He chuckled. Yeah, but that chicken had character. I said, taking the tulips. Character and ashes, that's what it had. We both laughed. That easy, full laugh that only lives where forgiveness has taken root. After breakfast, we drove to the community center for the first meeting of the Mother Helen Foundation. Mavis had convinced me to start it. A place to teach young women how to protect what's theirs, their homes, their hearts, their hope. We started with 10 women in a borrowed classroom and a whiteboard that squeaked when you wrote on it. But when I stood there, looking at those faces, scared, strong, searching, I felt the spirit settle over the room like sunlight through stained glass. Ladies, I began, I ain't here to preach. I'm here to prepare you, because people will smile in your face while signing your downfall on paper. They'll call you family when they mean free labor. But love, real love, knows boundaries, and boundaries don't break homes, they build them stronger. Some nodded, some cried. One woman whispered, "Amen," like it came straight from her ribs. That's when I knew my pain had purpose. It had turned into seed, and that seed was already growing into somebody else's victory. Months passed. One evening, as I locked up the community center, Marcus handed me a letter. The return address said Louisiana Correctional Women's Facility. I opened it in the car. Inside was a photo, Tasha, standing next to a group of women, all in uniform, all smiling. On the back, she'd written in neat blue ink, "We started a reading circle, Miss Helen. I tell them about you, about how forgiveness ain't weakness. It's just quiet until it strikes. Thank you for teaching me that." My hands trembled as I read it. Tears blurred the ink, but I didn't wipe them. I wanted them to sink in, proof that healing had finally gone full circle. Marcus put his hand on mine. "She's different, Ma. You changed her life." I shook my head, smiling faintly. "Nah, baby. She changed her own. I just reminded her she could." That night, I sat on my porch for the last scene of this story. Not the ending, just the echo. The moon hung high, the wind soft, the world steady. I looked out at the house, my house, its lights warm against the dark. Every brick, every window, every nail was a chapter of survival, and every scar in my heart had turned into a hymn. I whispered to the night, they wanted my silence, so I gave them a sermon. The wind carried it, soft but sure. Maybe to the town, maybe to her, maybe just to heaven. Either way, the lesson had been delivered. And so to whoever's listening, the daughter, the son, the mother, the stranger, if you ever find yourself betrayed, don't waste your pain. Turn it into purpose, because revenge ends a story, but redemption makes it worth remembering. The porch light flickered once, then steadied like an amen whispered by the wind. I smiled, leaned back, and let the rocking chair sing its quiet gospel beneath me. This was Aunt Helen, still standing, still loving, still learning.